Welcome back to my channel. Open SQL Server Management Studio or SSMS and create a new database. Here, I created a new database and now I want to create a new table. Now click Execute button to create your table. Okay, your table successfully created. Now we go back to the Visual Studio to add components that we want to save the data into the DB. Here is the project. The project name is personal data. Now I want to connect Visual Studio to the SQL Server. We go to the Server Explorer, click on this icon, connect to the database. Here you have to write your server name. For simplicity, you can just type a dot. And here you can see all the databases that you created on your PC. I select my database and click Test Connection to make sure that Visual Studio successfully connected to the database. Click OK and OK. Now, as you can see here, the Visual Studio connected to your database. For this purpose, I need some components like labels, text boxes, and buttons, and data grid view. So let's add these components from the toolbox. We go to the common controls. We need some labels. Here, we just make it copy and paste. Let's change the text to the full name. Next one is email, and the last one is phone number. Okay, now we need 3 text boxes. Okay, let's align them together. Then we need a data grid view, which is in data tab. Put it here. And I need now 3 buttons. One for save, one for update, and one for delete. Okay, let's change the text and also the name of the buttons. Save. I go to the name btn underline save. The next one is btn update. Also the text should be update. And the last one is delete button. btn delete. Okay. Before I forgot, I have to change the name of the text boxes. txt full name, txt email, and the last one is txt phone. Now I want to create a new class for saving the database address into our class that if in the future our database address will be changed, we can just easily change that text and it affects all the projects. Go to Solution Explorer, right click on your project, click Add and a new class. I name it CL constring. I made it as a public that I have access to this class from all over the project. For this purpose, I need an string variable. Public string, and I name it as a constr equals to double quote. For getting the address of your database connection, you have to go back to the Server Explorers and right click on your DB, click Properties, and here you can see the connection string. Double click, copy, and paste it here. Now, as you can see here, we have a connection string that has everything that we want. Okay, close it, save the project. When we want to have a connection between the Visual Studio and the SQL Server, we have to install package. You can find this package in the NuGet Packet Manager. To get access to the NuGet, go to the Solution Explorer, right-click on your project. Here you can see Manage NuGet Packages. Here you have 3 tabs. The first one is Browse. You can search everything that's located there. Here is the install packages, and here is the package that you need to update. You go to the browse and type it here, SQL. Click enter. So as you see here, there is a bunch of packages you can install. The package that we want to use it in this tutorial is system.data.sql client. Click install. Here it needs your authorization and the package is installed. Go back to the form. I made it a little smaller and okay. Now I want to save data into the database. Double click on save. Before go to the save pod, we have to create new instances of our connection string class. So we type it here, CL connection string, CLCon equals to new CL connection. With this code, we have access to all the variables that we are defining here in this class. Let's go back to the save button, click here, type it using. I want to use the SQL connection, SQL connection on equals to new SQL connection. Okay, now as you see here, it needs parameter. Okay, for this connection string, I pass it that class, clcon.connection string. To be able to use this connection string, we have to first open the connection. We type it con.open. Now here I want to write the SQL commands and also the C# commands to insert data into our table. I use the SQL command, name it cmd equals to new SQL command. So now here we need to write SQL commands to insert our data into the DB. If you do not know how to write SQL commands, you can find it in my video that I link it in the top of this video. Insert into personal info. Here, type it the fields, name, email, and phone. We have to pass the values to these parameters. And now I want to pass the values to these parameters. Type it values and in this step, I want to set a dynamic parameters to use it in our code. I use it name, email, and phone. Okay, when you use this you can pass the parameters from outside this SQL command. Quotation, and as you see here, this SQL command needs an open SQL connection. Here it's our SQL connection, and here we were open it. I just pass it here. Now I want to fulfill these parameters. I write it cmd.parameters.add with value. So as you see here, it shows you the structure and the inputs that this function accepted. For now, it needs the parameter name, which is it here. In double quotes, I write it that parameter the same, and in the next, it's the object value. This is the object that you want to save the value of into a DB. I write it txt full name dot text, and it's done. Next, cmd dot parameters again dot add value. It's now for email, and the last one is for the phone number. Txt phone dot text. Now we have to execute this SQL command. For this purpose, we write it cmd.execute non-query. At the end, we show a message box to the user that the data saved correctly into the DB. Message box dot show. I just show a simple message to the user. Data inserted successfully and done. Now let's go to the update button and write the code related to it. Go to the design view, double click on update, and now again using SQL connection, con. Okay, the update button is a little different from the insert, but the structure is the same. For the SQL update command, write it update, name of the table, here set, and write it here the fields that you want to be changed. Name, equals to @name email equals to @email, and phone equals to @phone. Because we do not want to destroy all the information that we were inserted into the DB in the past, for the update command, you have to use a where condition that just update the specific rows and data that you mean it. Write it ID equals to @ID. And again, the connection. Okay, the update button is done. Let's go to the delete button. Double click, and it's all the same. Now all the codes related to our buttons are finished. There is one more thing that I want to do. Add one more button here, and I name it as a refresh. Then change the name, ETN refresh. In this command, I want to show you how you can fetch the data from SQL Server into the data grid view. When you want to fetch the data from the database and show it in a data grid view, you have to use SQL data adapter and SQL data set. So now I type it SQL data adapter DA equals to new data adapter, and I want to use my command, which name is CMD. Then I set it into the data set. DS equals to new data set. And the last part, we have to fill the data adapter, DA dot fields DS. Now I want to show all the data into the data grid view. Write it the name, data grid view dot data source equals to DS. Save the project, and let's run the project and see if we have any errors or not. Okay, name Ali, email ali@gmail.com, and the phone number is 123. Let's click save. Okay, it shows the keyword not supported, trusted server certificate, which means our connection string has problem. Let's go back to the connection string class. And as you see in the error, it says this trusted server certificate is not supported. Let's delete it, save, run again the project. So as you see here, the data inserted successfully into our database. Let's click the refresh and see if any data inserted to the DB or not. Click refresh, nothing happened. Now we want to debug the code and see where is the problem. Stop. If you click here, there is a breakpoint located here. And when you started your project, the code stopped at this line of code. Now run the project again and click refresh. As you see, the project stopped at this line that I already put a breakpoint. To go through the code, you have several options. You have some icons here that, as you see here, with F11, you can step into the code. F10, you can step over. And with Shift plus F11, you can step out from the code. Now I want to go inside the code. Click F11, it goes inside, and here. So as up to here, we have no problems. When go with your mouse on an object, you can see the data that's located in that object. I put mouse on this object, click view, And as you see here, the data is already there. But why it's not showing into the data grid view, I will tell you. The problem is this code. I made it stop. So when you use this data set, you have to address it which table you want to show it. I click dot tables 0, which means the first table that located in our data set pass into the data grid view data source. Run again the project. Okay, click refresh. It goes again. I want to set out the breakpoint. Again, click on this area. The red circle is gone and I click continue. You see here your data is there. Okay, I just want to add another data. John J at yahoo.com and the phone number is 321. Save. Data inserted successfully. Refresh and the data is here. Now we see the problem. The data that we already inserted to the database are not deleted from our text boxes. For this, we have to make the text boxes empty after we click on Save button. Stop, go back to the Save button, and after the data was successfully inserted into the database, I made the text boxes empty. txt full name dot clear. It makes the text from the text boxes clear. Email cleared, and the last one is phone number. I also need these for update. Just copy and paste it here. Let's test and click save. So as you see, the text boxes was cleared. Click refresh and you see your data. If you remember, for update button, I just add a static number here for update command. For example, Mac, and the email is mac@gmail.com and the phone number is 963. I click update and refresh. So as you see here, the first row was changed. Why? Because I set it here, the static number, which is 1. Now we want to make it this dynamic. I stop the project, go back to the design view, change a little position of these components, and I need a label for ID and a text box that show the ID. But this ID cannot be changed. So I go to the properties and made it as a read only, which means you cannot change the data of this text box. Okay, now let's write some codes that when the user double click on each rows of this data grid view, the data will show into these text boxes. Click on the data grid view, go to the properties, go to the events, and let's find this cell double click. We see the cell double click, we write it down, txt full name dot text equals to data grid view dot rows e dot row index dot cells. Here you have to write the index of the cell that you want to show the data in the text box. In data grid view, indexes are started with 0. The 0 index is ID, so here we write it 1. We need value dot to string. The next txt email dot text equals to data grid view dot rows. Again, e dot row index dot cells 2 dot value dot to string. txt font dot text equals to data grid view dot rows. Here we forgot to show the data of the ID column. Go back to the design view. With F4, you can access to the properties. Change the text and the name. txt ID. Go back to our code. Here, txt ID dot text equals to data grid view dot rows e dot row index dot cells 0 dot value dot to string. Let's test the program. Refresh, fetch the data from the DB, double click on it, and the data show here. John. Let's go back to the update and delete quotes and made it dynamic. I write it txt id dot text. And for the delete, txt id dot text. Okay, let's test the program. Refresh. Double click on John. Change the number to 2525. Let's click update. Data updated successfully. Okay, and refresh. As you see here, the phone number updated. And I want to delete the Jack record. Delete, refresh, and well done. We have built a fully functional Visual Studio project that takes personal data input and save it directly into SQL Server using SQL commands. In the last video, we learned how to connect Visual Studio to the SQL Server and how we can save some text to the DB. In this video, I want to add more controls to the project. So as you see here, the toolbox control is disappeared. To get access to the toolbox, you can go to the view and select toolbox. Okay, here it's the toolbox. First, I want to add two radio buttons for marriage status and make it copy. And I need a label. I name it as a marriage status. And the first radio button, I name it married. And the second one is single. And also change the name, RDB underline single. And this one, RDB underline married. Then I need some checkboxes to ask the user about the languages that he or she knows. Let's make the form a little bigger. I add a label, text is languages, and some checkboxes. Let's make some copy of this checkbox. The first one is English, second one is German, and the last one is French. Also the name, CHK French, CHK underline German, and CHK underline English. Now I need a datetime picker for date of birth. I put it here and a label for birth date. And the last control is a combo box, which I needed for employment type. Let's add the value to it, edit item. The first one is intern employee and the other one is extern. Click OK. Let's put the label for it and the name is EMP type. Now I want to go back to the SQL Server and alter the table that we created in the last video. In SQL, you have two ways to alter your table. One with the code that I have a video that you can find it in the link in the top of this video. And another way is you can open your database and go to the tables and right click on your table and select design. As you see, all the fields that we created in the last video is here. Marriage status, which is NVACAR 50, and languages, NVACAR 50, birth date, which is date, and the last column is employment type, which is NVACAR. Click save, and let's go back to the Visual Studio. So let's double click on Save button. And here I have to add those columns that I added to the table here. The first one is marriage status. Next one is languages, update, and employment type. For the better see, I click Enter here that you can see better the code. Comma, @ marriage status, @ languages, birth date, and employment type. Now I have to fill these parameters, but as you see here, for marriage status, we have two options. For languages, we have three. So we have to make condition that the program understand it, which options are selected. Let's go back to the code. Here I write it. If RDB married.checked, that means this radio button is selected. cmd.parameters.add with value goes to the marriage status, and here we need the text of this. And else I made it copy and change this to RDB single. Now for languages, we need a list that if any checkboxes are checked, put the value to that variable and then at the end save all the values together into one field of table. For this purpose, we need a list and now we write the conditions. And now join all the values together and separate them with a comma. And at the end, fill the languages field. Now I want to fulfill the birth date column. cmd.parameters.add with value @ birth date and datetime picker dot value dot date. And the last component is employment type. cmd.parameters.add with value @ emp type and combo box dot selected item dot toString. Now for the update button, you can just copy all the codes that you wrote it in the save button to the update button. Let's just copy all the codes from here and then paste it here. Let's go to the cell double click of the data grid view, properties, events, and cell double click. Here again, we need some conditions that the program realizes which context saved into the DB. If data grid view dot rows e dot row index dot cells number 4 dot value dot toString equals to married rdb married dot check is true, else rdb single dot check is true. Because we save all the values together and separate them with a comma, we have to go through all the words one by one and check if it is equals to, for example, English, German, or French, and then make the checkbox dot check to the true. First, I want to put the value to the variable string language equals to data grid view dot rows e dot row index dot cells number 4 that value dot to string. I want to split the string by commas and put them into the array. String languages equals to language dot split and the split parameter is comma. Now I want to use for each to go through all the values in this languages array and separate them. For each string lang in languages if lang equals to English chk English dot check equals to true. Else if lang equals to German chk German dot check equals to true, and the last is for French. And before we go to the next code, this 4 should be 5. And now for datetime picker, we have to parse the value to the datetime and set it to the datetime picker. For this purpose, I need another variable, string date equals to data grid view dot rows e dot row index dot cells 7 that value dot to string. Here I write the code to parse the value to datetime. Datetime dot try parse. The first parameter is the value that located in the DB date, and the output is datetime result. Now we set this result value to the datetime picker. Datetime picker dot value equals to result. And let's change the value of the combo box. For combo box, I need another if else condition to show the correct value into a combo box. If the value equals to intern combo box dot selected index equals to 0, else combo box dot selected index is equals to 1. And finally, let's test all the codes that we added to our project. Type it John, email john@hotmail.com. The number is single and he just knows German and French. And the birth date is, for example, 1st of January 1990. And he works as an extern. Let's save, refresh, and as you see here, all the data saved here. In this video, I want to add another table, and this table is about the department. So let's add the department table to our DB. For this purpose, we go to our database, right-click on a tables, new table. The first column is ID, data type int, and I want to make it as a primary key and also set it as a auto increment. In the properties, go to the identity specification. Is identity set it to yes. The next column is dep underline name and varchar 50. Now I want to add a new column to this table, which is needed in the next video. The column is working time, data type, and varchar. Let's save the table, department, and click OK. Now let's add some data to this table. Close, go to the Object Explorer. First, you have to refresh the tables to see your new table. Right-click on it, select Edit. Department name is, for example, IT. Working hours, for example, from 8 to 18. The next department is, for example, finance. Working time 7 to 17. And as you see here, because I set it as a is identity, the ID is auto incremented. The next department is marketing, working hours 8 to 18. Let's go back to the Visual Studio and connect this table to one dropdown. Now just copy this and paste it. Let's change the name. So the name is department, and also change the name of this combo box, CMB underline department. Save. So let's connect this combo box to our table. For this purpose, I want to load this combo box in the form load. Then double click on the form. We go to the form load event and write the code using SQL connection con equals to new SQL connection, our class dot connection string, and another parenthesis. Let's open the connection dot open. Again, use the SQL command, cmd equals to new SQL command, select star from department and the connection. And then I need a data table, dt equals to new data table, and I need SQL data adapter, EA equals to new SQL adapter and our command. And the last is we have to fill the data adapter. Okay. And here we have to bind the data table to our combo box. CMB department dot data source equals to data table. And here there is an important things that you have to use it. For combo box, you have two options. One is display member, which is name of the column that you want to show the value of it to the user. And the name is def underline name. And another things is value member, which is ID. So here is column to display to the user, and for this is value of each item. So let's test the project that makes sure there is no error. Run the project, and as you see here, all the departments that we added is here. Okay, let's close it. Now we have to connect the department table to our personal table. Let's go back to the SQL server. We go to the personal info table, design. Now I want to connect these two tables together with a foreign key. If you do not know what is primary key and the foreign key, you can watch my video that I link it in the top of this video. The foreign key is dep underline ID, which is int, and it's okay. Let's go back to the Visual Studio and go to the save. Okay, let's fulfill this new column that added. That is dep underline ID, and here assign dep underline ID. Okay, here CMD, the parameters that add with value, the new column, and the value. CMB department dot selected value. Let's save. Well, I want to debug the code that makes sure the correct value save into the DB. Run the project. Let's fill it as a James. Email j@yahoo.com. Phone number 0987. Single. He knows just German. Birth date is 1st of January 1990. Employment type as an intern, and he works in an IT department. Let's save. It goes here. And if you put your mouse on the selected value, you can see the value that is passed to the database. Let's continue. And it's done. Okay, let's continue the project. Now the data is saved into the database. Let's refresh it. And as you see here, the department ID is here. Let's change the properties of this data grid view to see the data in this data grid view better. Let's stop it, disable this breakpoint, go back to the design view. So the data grid view has some options. There is a properties that names auto size columns mode, which is none columns header, just you see the full column header, all cells except header, all cells, display cells except header, and display cells. Let's set it on a feed. Run, refresh, and as you see here, you see all the fields. But if you want to see the full data in each columns and rows, you have to change it to the all cells. Let's go to the properties, change this field to all cells. Run, refresh, and here you can see all the text that fill into the each columns. Let's make this data grid view bigger. Just move them to here, and let's change the position of these components. Put it to here, and all of them to here. It looks better, and make this data grid view as a full size. Save, let's run it, refresh, and here with all cells there's a problem that if the data grid view is bigger than the number of your columns, you see here free spaces. For now you have to set it back to the field because data grid view is big enough. Change all cells to the field. Run and refresh. Okay, you see full data and fill these columns to your data grid view. Let's do the same things that we did in the save button for update button. Stop, go to the update button. Dep underline ID equals to @ dep ID. Here cmd dot parameters that add with value at dep ID and cmb dot selected value and semicolon. It's done. I want to change this cell double click of data grid view and add this new column to the code. F4, go to the events, cell double click. First, I put the value of this column to a variable. Let's say it's string. Dep name equals to data grid view dot rows, e dot row index dot cells 8 dot value dot to string. I want to teach a new command, which is switch case on dep name. Let's delete this. The item is IT CMB department dot selected index to 0 break. The next case is finance. Let's set it to 1. Again, break. And for the last one is marketing. The index equals to 2. Run and refresh. But here, this one is unknown. And instead of this department ID, I want to show the department name. So let's join these tables together. Stop the project, go to the refresh button, and here is the select. Here type it inner join department on department dot ID equals to personal info dot dep underline ID. Let's test this code and to see the differences between this previous code, which is this one, and with this new code. Run the project, refresh, and as you see here, all the columns is here. But there is a big difference between the previous code and this code. In this code, because of this condition that I set it here, it just shows the rows which has this ID. Let's go to the SQL Server and update this dep ID column to see all the data here. Right click on it, edit, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, let's go back to the Visual Studio, refresh. So all the columns and all the rows are filled and it's there. I just want to show this department name only. Close it. Here there is a hack and I want to show you. Let's go back to the SQL Server, close this. If you right click on your table, there is a menu here that is script table. You have multiple options. That if you want to know more about these options, please write down in the comments and I will create a separate video for this one. Go to the select, copy, and let's go back to the Visual Studio. And I just want to copy and paste it here because I do not need all of them. I don't want these brackets, just delete them. Then I want to remove this free space between them. So I don't want this department ID. Just delete it. Let's copy all these columns and paste it instead of this star. Let's hit the enter. And here I need this department name from department table. Let's delete this and let's run the project and see the result. Refresh. So here we have an error. That error is ambiguous column name ID. Why? Because in the both tables, we have this ID column name. Let's stop it. Solve this problem. Just add personal info.id. Just add the table name in front of the column. Let's run it again, refresh, and very good. Instead of that ID 123, you see now the department. For example, Ali works in the finance, John works in the IT, and so on. As you remember, I add another column which name is working time. In the next video, I will show you some interesting things about this column and see you in the next video. Thank you guys for watching my video up to the end and I hope you enjoyed.